The Presidents of the United States of America. George Washington was the first President of America. He helped to establish the federal government and aspired to create a free, democratic, and united country. His term in office was from 1789 to 1797. John Adams was the first Vice President and the second President of America. He is highly regarded as one of the most influential founding fathers of the United States. His term in office was from 1797 to 1801. Thomas Jefferson was the third President of America and most famous as the author of the Declaration of Independence and for his negotiation of the Louisiana Purchase with France, which doubled the size of the United States. His term in office was from 1801 to 1809. James Madison was the fourth President of America and best remembered as the father of the Bill of Rights and for presiding over the War of 1812 with Britain. His term in office was from 1809 to 1817. James Monroe was the fifth President of America and is best known for the Monroe Doctrine, which stated that the United States would not allow European interference in the Western Hemisphere. His term in office was from 1817 to 1825. John Quincy Adams was the sixth President of America and was the son of the second President, John Adams. John Quincy Adams is remembered for helping to formulate the Monroe Doctrine, negotiating the Treaty of Ghent, and leading the fight to force Congress to receive anti-slavery petitions. His term in office was from 1825 to 1829. Andrew Jackson was the seventh President of America and is considered to be the father of the modern presidency, as he significantly contributed to the expansion of the office. His term in office was from 1829 to 1837. Martin Van Buren was the eighth President of America, whose presidency was dogged by an economic depression that led to bank failures and food riots known as the Panic of 1837. His term in office was from 1837 to 1841. William Harrison was the ninth President of America and is remembered as the first president to die in office, serving for just 32 days. His short term in office started and also ended in 1841. John Tyler was the 10th President of America, who assumed the office of President after the death of his predecessor, William Harrison. His most notable accomplishment was making Florida part of the Union. He is also remembered for his approval of the annexation of Texas. His term in office was from 1841 to 1845. James Knox Polk was the 11th President of America and is best known for his policy of expansion, which added Texas, California, and other territory to the U.S. His term in office was from 1845 to 1849. Zachary Taylor was the 12th President of America and the second to die while in office. Despite owning many slaves, he angered many Southerners by taking a moderate stance on the issue of slavery. His term in office was from 1849 to 1850. Millard Fillmore was the 13th President of America, known for his approval of the Compromise of 1850, which allowed slavery in the South. This law failed as neither the North nor the South was happy with it. His term in office was from 1850 to 1853. Franklin Pierce was the 14th President of America. Franklin Pierce was incapable of stemming the march toward civil war, and one of his few accomplishments was initiating discussions on acquiring Alaska. His term in office was from 1853 to 1857. James Buchanan was the 15th President of America and the only bachelor to ever serve in the White House. An ineffective president, he failed to find a compromise to keep the South from seceding, and the Union broke apart. His term in office was from 1857 to 1861. Abraham Lincoln was the 16th President of America who led the Union into the Civil War to preserve the nation and end slavery. He was assassinated 5 days after the Confederate army surrendered. His term in office was from 1861 to 1865. Andrew Johnson was the 17th President of America, who served in office following the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. He was the first president to be impeached, although never convicted. His term in office was from 1865 to 1869. Ulysses S. Grant was the 18th President of America and the great military hero of the Civil War. He led the North to victory over the Confederate South during the Civil War, but his presidency was marred by various scandals. His term in office was from 1869 to 1877. Rutherford B. Hayes was the 19th President of America, who won the election by just one electoral vote. He ended Reconstruction in the South, recalling the troops and allowing the South to govern itself. His term in office was from 1877 to 1881. James Garfield was the 20th President of America. His presidency was short-lived due to an assassination attempt which led to his death. His term in office lasted 100 days in 1881. Chester A. Arthur was the 21st President of America, well known for being honest and responsible. His major accomplishment was the reform of the civil service system. His term in office was from 1881 to 1885. Grover Cleveland was the 22nd and 24th President of America, the only president to be elected to 2 non-consecutive terms. The conservative Cleveland supported the gold standard and was famous for breaking the Pullman strike of 1894. His first term in office was from 1885 to 1889. His second term was from 1893 to 1897. Benjamin Harrison was the 23rd President of America and the grandson of the 9th President, William Henry Harrison. His presidency saw the first step towards making sure that trade was not limited by the existence of monopolies. His term in office was from 1889 to 1893. Grover Cleveland was the 22nd and 24th President of America, the only president to be elected to 2 non-consecutive terms. The conservative Cleveland supported the gold standard and was famous for breaking the Pullman strike of 1894. His first term in office was from 1885 to 1889. His second term was from 1893 to 1897. William McKinley was the 25th President of America and was assassinated by anarchist Leon Czolgosz. During his term in office, America became a world power for the first time, and President McKinley led the U.S. during the Spanish-American War. His term in office was from 1897 to 1901. Theodore Roosevelt was the 26th President of America and the first president to visit a foreign country while in office. He is famous for many accomplishments, including the building of the Panama Canal, creating the national parks, and cracking down on business monopolies. His term in office was from 1901 to 1909. William Taft was the 27th President of America and is the only president who became a Supreme Court justice. His presidency was characterized by Taft's dollar diplomacy and the dissolution of trusts. His term in office was from 1909 to 1913. Woodrow Wilson was the 28th President of America, who led the U.S. into World War I in 1917 and also drafted the peace plan at the end of it. His term in office was from 1913 to 1921. Warren Harding was the 29th President of America. He was dogged by various scandals during his presidency and died in office just as massive corruption in the Teapot Dome scandal was about to become public. His term in office was from 1921 to 1923. Calvin Coolidge was the 30th President of America during a period of economic prosperity. His policy was that government should interfere as little as possible with businesses and individuals, and he therefore ignored signs that the stock market was likely to collapse. His term in office was from 1923 to 1929. Herbert Hoover was the 31st President of America, who was blamed for the great stock market crash and the Great Depression in 1929. His term in office was from 1929 to 1933. Franklin D. Roosevelt was the 32nd President of America and the only president to serve more than 2 terms. He led the nation out of the Great Depression and towards victory in World War II. His term in office was from 1933 to 1945. Harry S. Truman was the 33rd President of America, who made the decision to drop the atomic bomb on Japan, leading to the end of World War II. On his desk, Truman had a plaque that said, "The buck stops here." His term in office was from 1945 to 1953. Dwight D. Eisenhower was the 34th President of America, who led the nation to the end of the Korean War and steered a moderate course during the Cold War. His term in office was from 1953 to 1961. John F. Kennedy was the 35th President of America, who was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. During his term in office, he forced the Russians to back down during the Cuban Missile Crisis when the world was on the brink of nuclear war. His term in office was from 1961 to 1963. Lyndon B. Johnson was the 36th President of America, who was sworn into office on an airplane after the assassination of John F. Kennedy. His presidency was dominated by the Vietnam War, although his policies resulting in significant anti-poverty measures and civil rights programs should also be remembered. His term in office was from 1963 to 1969. Richard Nixon was the 37th President of America and the only U.S. president in history to resign his office. His resignation was due to his involvement in the Watergate break-in and cover-up scandal. His term in office was from 1969 to 1974. Gerald Ford became the 38th President of America following the resignation of Richard Nixon. He was the only president neither elected to the presidency nor the vice presidency. President Ford granted the disgraced Nixon an unconditional pardon, which was extremely unpopular with the voters and probably cost Ford re-election. His term in office was from 1974 to 1977. Jimmy Carter was the 39th President of America. His major accomplishment was the Camp David peace agreement between Israel and Egypt. His failures were the economy and the Iran hostage crisis. His term in office was from 1977 to 1981. Ronald Reagan was the 40th President of America. He enjoyed great popularity, although his conservative policies were often controversial. His domestic policies encouraged entrepreneurship, and his presidency saw substantial economic recovery. His foreign policies were heavily anti-communist, and he encouraged new defense technology so that the U.S. could confront the Soviet Union and its allies. He is particularly remembered for forging a strong relationship with Britain. His term in office was from 1981 to 1989. George H. Bush was the 41st President of America, whose term saw the collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War. He also led the U.S. in the 1991 Gulf War against Iraq. His term in office was from 1989 to 1993. Bill Clinton was the 42nd President of America and was the second president in American history to be impeached due to the Lewinsky scandal. He was subsequently acquitted on all impeachment charges of perjury and obstruction of justice. His term in office was from 1993 to 2001. George W. Bush was the 43rd President of America who, following the September 11th terrorist attacks, led the nation into war in Afghanistan and Iraq. His term in office was from 2001 to 2009. Barack Obama is the 44th President of America and is the first African American to be elected President of the United States. His term in office started in 2009. The major events of his presidency have included the economic crisis at home and the ongoing fight against terrorism. This unique collection of videos has been developed to enable students to gain a fast overview of the lives of each of the U.S. presidents, together with the key events which occurred during their presidency. Discover the range of videos that are available on the Facts About website and use them as a fast, dynamic learning aid, which will add variety to conventional study methods and help to increase knowledge retention.